Well, first tonight to the real story behind the shock appointment of Liberal power broker Matt Kean joining Team Albo today. Kean stands accused of being a turncoat by the Liberals after Albanese announced he'd chair the Climate Change Authority.
Mr Kean understands the opportunity that the transition to clean energy represents for our nation.
I'll be making decisions and providing advice to the government based on facts, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the facts.
Kean is divisive, he's polarising, and he's always been highly ambitious. Liberal sources tell me that he was considering running against federal Liberal Paul Fletcher or even potentially challenging the New South Wales leader Mark Speakman. But this role, chair of the Climate Change Authority, will give him a high-profile platform quite separate from the Liberal Party. Political insiders are speculating that Kean could use his new position to launch a future career in federal parliament as the informal leader of the Teals. A key piece of this is that Matt Kean is very close to Malcolm Turnbull. You'll recall that Kean appointed Turnbull to be the chair of the New South Wales Government's Clean Energy Advisory Board, but political uproar saw him rescind that offer. Now, Turnbull's number one enemy is Peter Dutton, who was plotting a leadership challenge against him as Prime Minister in August 2018. My front page story revealing this planned challenge prompted Turnbull to call a leadership spill, and less than a week later, he was no longer Prime Minister. In this new role, Matt Kean will come up against Peter Dutton, even though they've had a good relationship in the past. Already today, Kean dismissed Dutton's plans for nuclear energy.
In order to bring nuclear into the system, it would take far too long and would be far too expensive for New South Wales. Now, I didn't want to bankrupt the state, and I didn't want to put those huge costs onto families.
Well, those comments came despite the fact that Matt Kean supported nuclear energy just 3 years ago, as Andrew Clennell pointed out today.
Do you think we'll ever have nuclear power stations in Australia?
Yeah, I think so. There's some exciting things happening on the nuclear front. So a company in the United States is developing technology around small modular nuclear reactors. Into the future, will nuclear have a role to play? I think so, and I hope so. But right now, I can't bet on technology that isn't readily available.
Well, when he was Energy Minister in New South Wales and also Treasurer, Matt Kean wanted to rush the closure of the largest coal-fired power station in the state. It was a move that Labor Premier Chris Minns has had to reverse. And in fact, Minns is now extending the life cycle of Eraring until 2027, just to make sure the lights stay on. This was an extraordinary move, and it shows that Matt Kean was more radical and more ambitious in his rush to transition to renewables than even New South Wales Labor. This has undermined his authority in the energy space. Now, Kean wasn't just a former state treasurer, but until a few days ago, he was the leader of the moderate faction for the entire Liberal Party. Now he's joined the enemy, Team Albo. The truth is that Matt Kean is despised by many in the Liberal Party, with senior figures today calling him treacherous and a traitor. But even before today's move, he was far from loyal to the Liberal Party. During the federal election campaign, he tried to stir up controversy for then Prime Minister Scott Morrison. He texted a Channel 10 journalist encouraging her to pursue the controversy surrounding Liberal candidate Catherine Deves. He texted the reporter saying, "You should pap her." That reporter, by the way, is now one of 11 media advisors for Anthony Albanese. Senior Liberal figures were shocked at the time that Kean was trying to deliberately sabotage Scott Morrison's prospects in favour of Albanese. And then Labor premiers Mark McGowan, Anastasia Palaszczuk and Daniel Andrews were all out there campaigning to help Albanese win. And yet one of the most senior figures in the New South Wales Liberal government was working against his own party's prospects. Well, the first time Matt Kean spoke out against the Liberal Party federally was here on this show in 2020 when he accused Scott Morrison of failing to take action on climate change. The next day, Morrison retorted that no one even knew who Matt Kean was. Ironically, these comments made Matt Kean a more well-recognised name.
My understanding is some of the most senior members of the government, and they're not moderates, they're from the right of the party.
In Cabinet?
And they are saying that this is a huge issue.
In Cabinet?
In Cabinet, absolutely. And can I just say, Sherry, I mean, this is because their communities are crying out. They're listening to the majority of people in their electorates that are saying, we want you to protect our environment, but we don't want you to do it in a way that's going to destroy our economy.
Matt Kean doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what's going on in the federal cabinet. Most of the federal cabinet wouldn't even know who Matt Kean was.
Now, the biggest mistake when it comes to energy policy in Australia is that it's been driven by ideology over and above energy security or cost. Peter Dutton has suggested nuclear energy form part of the energy mix, not all of it. But in recent days, we've seen a farcical display of Labor rejecting nuclear energy because of ridiculous suggestions of three-eyed fish and three-eyed koalas. This line of attack only diminishes Labor's credibility. If there is a serious objection to nuclear, well, let's hear it, let's have the debate. But so far, Albanese's resistance to pursuing nuclear as part of the energy solution is ideological, because he himself has been against nuclear policy for almost as long as he's been in Parliament. The times have moved on. 32 countries internationally now rely on nuclear energy. Polling shows Australians are open to the nuclear conversation, and even our AUKUS submarines are nuclear powered. With all of this in mind, Matt Kean will be a useless weapon if Labor tries to use him against Dutton in the lead up to the next election.